What's up, y'all? It's Dante, aka the Forensics Guy, and you are listening to the Forensics Experience, the podcast where we discuss topics in the speech and debate community with the world's most influential coaches, students, and alumni in the activity. And today, I'm telling you all, I am beyond honored. This is amazing for me. I'm getting to sit with Bera Demirbilek, who is an old student of mine and an amazing speech and debater. So I hope for everybody this is going to be an episode where you get some really good insight on what a true champion does. So I'm going to give him a second, Bera, sorry. I'm pronouncing that really weird. But Bera, can you tell the few people that are listening that probably don't know who you are, who are you and what do you do in the speech and debate community?
Yeah, for sure, Dante. So my name's Bera Demirbilek. I'm from Wisconsin, from the suburbs of the Milwaukee area. And in high school, I primarily competed in public forum debate, congressional debate, and extemporaneous speaking. Overall, I definitely try to lean more towards the debate side of things. So I concentrated most of my energy on Congress and PF, or public forum, and ended up being pretty lucky this year, my senior year, to win the Wisconsin State tournament in both public forum and congressional debate, which was very, very fun.
Woo! That's awesome. So I'm sure a lot of people are pretty curious. I've had some people from Wisconsin on before. We kind of talked about some different subsectors of different leagues and everything in speech and debate because it operates so much differently in Wisconsin than it does in other places. Can you tell them, did you do middle school speech and debate as well?
Yeah, so in Wisconsin, middle school speech and debate is really known as forensics, and there's not really a debate component. It's mostly speech. So in middle school, I competed in a variety of different categories. It was pretty fun. I joined because my friends are doing it, and
Nice.
I think I did infomercial and I did non-original oratory as my category.
That is awesome. I love for those that aren't in Wisconsin. If you've never seen infomercial, you are missing out on something really crazy. It's really fun. It's literally exactly what it sounds like, infomercial. So it's basically a bunch of kids fighting for who gets to be the next Billy Mays, RIP, one of the greats. Obviously, we're sitting here with a true champ, someone who's been doing amazing at this activity. I am curious, when you first started to do this in middle school, were you already, championing at tournaments, or was this kind of a big learning curve for you? How do you believe you best got to where you are in being a double state champion?
Yeah, for sure. So in middle school, I started in 7th grade, and I was actually pretty shy. I didn't even join in 6th grade because I didn't know who I was. I didn't know whether I wanted to actually go into public speaking. It was I had to meet coaches who were completely new to me, and I just didn't feel comfortable with that experience. So in 7th grade, I just joined with one of my friends, who's a really close friend to me, and we did an infomercial together. And he had a lot of success in his 6th grade year with infomercial. But in 7th grade, we didn't have that much success. We made a couple elimination rounds. We didn't do anything that serious, though, and at the state tournament in middle school, we didn't end up making elimination rounds, which is kind of disappointing.
Okay.
But then in 8th grade, I did non-original oratory in forensics, and that went a little bit better for me. But still in the regular season, I didn't make many elimination rounds that much. I made a couple more. But at state, though, I actually was pretty lucky, I think, and I actually ended up winning state in non-original oratory in my 8th grade year. But it's more of an uncompetitive category, so that's probably why. But yeah, I gave my speech was Steve Jobs' commencement speech at Stanford in, I believe, 2008 or 2007. One of those.
That is awesome, and I'm pretty sure it was 2007 because actually, I think, if I'm not mistaken, let's see, how old you would have been, probably a freshman or a sophomore at the time. But when I was coaching at Lake Country, one of my girls, she won state, and she did the exact same.
Oh,
oh man, that's so great. Wow. So Usually, I know we've had some guests kind of talk a little bit about debate, specifically kind of LD and PF. But I think this will be a really great chance to kind of dive a little bit into Congress. So for those who don't know, Congress is a very different category in its essence because it's what people will call the perfect mix of truly speech and debate. You get the opportunity to, debate as you're, going on bills, but you're also getting the chance to solidify your public speaking abilities as well. I guess a good question for you, Bara, here is, what was it honestly that you liked most about Congress as a category, and how do you think it helped you be able to translate? Because you did Congress, PF, and Extemp. How do you think Congress was a good leadway to help you be better at both PF and Extemp, or do you think it might have been the reversal, or where does your skill set lie here?
Yeah, for sure. So I really did enjoy Congress, and I kind of think that Congress is different and very. I just like really enjoy Congress because it really does focus on leadership. So, for example, in public forum debate or an LD debate, obviously you do need to learn how to speak well and how to lead outside of the debate space. But in Congress, like your category does really depend on you being a leader in and outside of the debate room or in and outside of the chamber. For example, like you want to be leading motions, you want to be like interacting with the entire chamber on what you want to debate. You have to show leadership with who you allow to give a speech and who you don't. For example, there's a lot of different things in Congress where it's definitely political, but it makes your leadership skills, like it really showcases your leadership skills, which I really did enjoy. It was very lively even when you weren't speaking. And I really did enjoy that process. So Congress definitely, I think overall, it was like a very encapsulating experience of everything that I could have wanted in debate. And yeah, it was very nice. And you didn't have to do so much research on one particular topic, but like you got to do research on a whole host of topics depending on what you were debating.
Definite. What would you say is for somebody who is just starting Congress, they may have been to a tournament or two. What do you think is the best way for them to be able to prepare for tournaments, getting ready to, go to whatever tournament on the Friday or Saturday?
Yeah, for sure. So I think that, like in your previous question, for example, you were saying like, how does Congress help in public forum or extemp? I think overall, you get better at Congress ability or public forum ability or extemp ability when you do any of these categories in particular, because in all of them, you're always thinking on your feet and you're always postulating what you're going to say next. And I think that as I did all three categories, like all my skills kind of went through all three. So in extemp, I would learn how to simplify things for more parent judges. And that translated to Congress, in which I could like simply explain like a foreign policy topic. And in public forum, that helped me with judge adaptation, for example. So I think that if you're going into your first Congress tournament, really what you want to do is prepare. Definitely you want to prepare what's on the docket and what legislation you have. But you also want to focus on not always giving the most rehearsed speeches, but also giving speeches and talking about things that are honestly that you think of in the round itself. Not necessarily things that are always just scripted, but things that might be a rebuttal to someone else's speech or things that you bring up that are more novel in the round. So I think those are very important skills. And I think that if you focus on learning about that in particular, you're going to ultimately be a better debater in general.
That is a great answer. I could definitely concur with that. I very much appreciate that answer. I'm also interested in kind of the best call it the politics of Congress. So Congress operates very different around the country as I've seen so far, and one big sector that I like to talk a lot about is the kind of private, or as some people call it, circuit sector of speech and debate. And I know you did a tiny bit of circuit, and especially when at least I was coaching, we didn't do as much, but we did get to go to a few different tournaments, and especially kind of nationals in general has that circuit vibe. Do you think that there was, just in general, off of your opinion, what differently did you really have to do to prepare for like a national Congress tournament as opposed to just a typical Friday night tournament at, somewhere in Wisconsin?
Yeah, so I think that in Wisconsin, for example, I've been debating against mostly the same people for the last 4 years. So I already have a good vision of what people would want on the docket, what people will argue for, and what side to take, for example, on different legislation, just to make sure that I will be able to speak and that I will be able to be heard in a chamber. Nationals,
Yeah.
those connect for someone who's from a small state like I am in Wisconsin, you don't have much of those connections because you don't always compete on the national circuit. And that's not really a problem for people who do have the resources, for example, to go to like Glenbrooks, but then go to Harvard, maybe go down to like the Emory Congressional Debate Tournament, or like in Florida to go to a couple there. But for people from
Yeah.
a small state, what you really want to make sure that you do is have people that you talk to and have people that you know, so that they'll make sure that you're always included in whatever is being like made, for example. So before nationals, you'll want to get into a group chat in which they'll talk about docket. You'll get to know some of the people, maybe like exchange a couple pleasantries, and that's definitely something that I always focused on, because no matter how much you prepare, that'll always be a factor, especially in Congress, on how well you do, which is, on one hand, kind of upsetting that your success does depend on other people, and that has hurt me in a lot of ways. But on the other hand, since I did know some people, that did actually end up helping me in other ways. So it's really kind of like a dual-edged sword with more circuit Congress, because you need to be able to know people, and when you know people and make those connections, it'll help your performance more, which is a little unfair, but that's just kind of how the political side of everything works. So that's kind of how I would describe it. There's definitely a problem with small state disparity, and that's when, like, I think resources really become a key issue in debate in general.
That's a really good point. Man, I love to. I want to find the right time, especially in the future, to really dive into some of the disparities between having the ability to do circuit speech and debate versus just being able to do it on the local scale. Because I mean, honestly, the schools with the more resources, I mean, it's not always guaranteed, but usually those are the schools that are really winning, and
Exactly.
that's just the truth of how it works, So I am constantly on the way to try to figure out how can we make this as equitable as possible. But at least right now, I'm glad that you were able to answer that question, because until we get to that point where it is equitable, I know there's some people who listening that might be doing Congress, and it could be their first, second year, and they're curious. They want to figure out, my school doesn't go to a lot of these tournaments, so how can I still try to take advantage of being able to succeed at circuit tournaments or nationals in general. So that was a great answer, and big ups for that one.
Yeah, for sure.
So Congress is great. I want to talk a little bit about just the overall experience, because I know there's so many people, at least I hope, that are listening that have never done speech and debate before, and for some reason they found this podcast and they're like, oh man, I want to do forensics now. This seems really fun, but they're still not convinced. Can you give me your favorite memory of competing in speech and debate? Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be, like on the stage or whatever, but like, what was that moment that just kind of like made you smile in this, like, look through the window kind of bright way of just like, I'm so glad I chose to do this?
Yeah, so I think this is like kind of a cliche answer, I think. And I think for a lot of different activities, this could apply. But I think that whether you want to join an activity or not really depends on who's in the activity and the team atmosphere you do end up building. So I think that
Yeah.
in my freshman year, for example, joining debate was a little hard because no one really wants to help the freshmen. Like, the freshmen are kind of left alone, and honestly, sometimes not for a bad reason either. Like, we were like definitely annoying as freshmen, and that's just like a freshman quality. It happens no matter who you are and how nice and how passionate you are. But it really depends on the leaders of the team to really set the attitude and the tone of how people are going to like act in the activities. So this year in particular, we tried to make the expectation that we don't necessarily care if you do end up winning, but we always want you to learn and always want you to be a part of the team. And I think that I've had just so many great moments with all my teammates. I've got to know them so much more, and I've got to help them in facets of life that aren't part of debate. And I think that that's really what makes debate what it is. I think that taking freshmen home after a practice or after a tournament because I can drive and they can't, and talking to them about other things too. Those are like the moments that you always love and that you'll always remember. And a lot of seniors did that to me when I was a freshman. And I think that when that cycle just happens and when you build that tradition of like upperclassmen, lowerclassmen, everyone just kind of working together, having discussions and creating dialogue, which is what the activity is about, you learn more about other people, you learn more about yourself. And I think that the whole experience in general just feels good. It's not really one particular moment, but it's a whole series of events that really makes you think full circle about the activity.
That's a great answer. Wow, very true. So what about you? Where are you now that you're done? I'm assuming you graduated, unless the coronavirus held you back. But where are you going? Where are you going to college? What are you doing? What did speech and debate get you to think about doing for the rest of your life?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm gracious enough to be attending Stanford in the fall. And at Stanford, I'll probably be studying. I'm not actually completely sure what I'll be studying. I have a lot of different things in mind, like a lot of different Stanford students do. But I always do want to I always want to like think about what debate has meant to me in terms of being able to like resolve issues, B, think logically, D, problem solve, and D, just speak publicly and be an advocate for different things. So no matter what I actually end up majoring in, and no matter what my career path ends up being, I just want to make sure that those aspects of who I am never change. And I think that debate and forensics and speech all kind of played into who I became ultimately. So I think those key aspects of who I am will end up translating into what type of career I do and who I really become professionally, and hopefully what I do after high school. But yeah, I'm not exactly sure what I'll be doing. My parents are definitely pushing me to be a doctor or to be an engineer. And I might end up doing that, but I don't actually completely know what I'll be studying in the future.
That's fair. Well, as I'm sure everybody listening, really, really, really big congrats on getting into Stanford. That's awesome. Wow, yeah, you're moving closer to me, so that's cool. Yeah, I mean, as I'm sure everybody listening to the podcast knows, I'm in the Bay Area. So,
wait, Dante, how far are you away from how far are you away from like Palo Alto?
I am. I would say I'm probably a 20-minute drive.
Oh, really? Wait, where do you live? Or like,
I'm like on the west side of.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's really close.
Yeah, and I'm actually looking at moving again. Probably right now I'm either looking at. I don't know. I got a few ideas in my head. Sure. In case I got some stalkers.
Yeah, I want to put you on the spot.
I'm looking at, but I am thinking about like Oakland, maybe San Francisco. I've even looked at a little bit closer to probably like Sunnyvale or something. Because Forensics Forever, we have a contract right now, which I guess I can kind of let out, but we're gonna be doing our elementary programs in the Cupertino School District. So yeah, hitting all the schools there as long as we have successful programs going. So I'm super excited about that. And yeah, just growing the elementary speech and debate out here is going to be really awesome. So I've been pushing a lot for that in the recent years. And obviously you should expect some emails from me because I'm going to be hitting you up to see if you want to help out. But yeah, I'm just trying to grow with speech and debate and doing it for the elementary kids right now. One thing that really kind of stuck out with me, I guess like I might as well use this podcast as an advertising platform. But I'm working on a I'm working on a new category for the 3rd through 5th graders. I was trying to like my goal is instead of being like so many after school organizations, here's the ad time. Instead of being like that, where they just kind of do a program and then they repeat the program over and over. I really want to try to make this into a truly competitive, but friendly league that kids can compete into. So I'm redecorating all the categories and turning them into something that still gives you the opportunity to feel like you're doing this category, but kind of changing it into a way that makes it most acceptable for a 3rd through 5th grader to be able to compete into. So like one category I have right now for the 3rd to 5th graders is it's called congressional discussion. So it's like a mix of, if you remember back in Wisconsin when we used to have, it might have been before your time or after your time, but we used to have a category called group discussion in Wisconsin. And it was just like it was literally a category where you had like 16 kids in a room or something like that, and they just talked about stuff. It was really interesting. And it operated kind of similar to Congress, except it didn't have you weren't arguing on bills or anything. You were just like sitting at a round table and discussing things and kind of saying whatever came to your mind, and you were judged on, how well you led the conversation and, how well you contributed to other people's ideas. And I want to, my goal is to kind of create something like that for the 3rd to 5th graders so they can kind of talk about things that might be relevant to like congressional debate in a way, but do it in more of a discussion platform as opposed to making it, like right in front of them. They can just kind of have the fun and the ability to just talk about it or something like that.
Yeah, that's definitely, I think that's definitely valuable. So good luck with that for sure.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
I think elementary speech and debate is very, very important, obviously. Wisconsin is very privileged to have even middle school speech and debate. There are a lot of states that don't really rock with middle school like that either. So just to have these opportunities is it means a lot. And I definitely can, first of all, see just in general how much I believe it's changed you as a person and how much I hope that it changes other students that go through this activity. It was so funny when you were talking about being like the little annoying freshman and stuff. I never thought you were annoying, but obviously all freshmen kind of have that, that personality to them, like you just know that they're freshmen. So they're just in this new world trying to figure out how to navigate. And I think overall, I'm so proud that it turned you into the great man that I am getting to interview today. Trying to say this, without the sappy eyes. But like, it's just, really awesome. And my last question that I just kind of want to figure out is, so I'm gonna figure out the best way to word this question with the time we have left. So, if you, no, wait, give me a second. Okay, so here's the best way to answer this question. So, if I or somebody gave you a high school speech and debate team right now, they handed over Brookfield East to you and you were the coach. You can be as honest as possible. What things would you have done or what things would you do that would be different in a way that you believe would have a really great positive impact on the students that you're coaching? And then what things would you say that, throughout either my time or as, you had new coaches in the future, things that we might have did that might not have been, in your opinion, the best way to like go about things in coaching? Like what differences would you have made and added to make a even better experience that you believe could be there?
Yeah, so I think I would break this down twofold. I think firstly I would talk about student leadership. So every year, and this has been a theme throughout the 4 years I've done the activity in high school in particular. We have discussions on who's going to be captains, who's going to be appointed what, based on what they have done for the activity. And at the end of the day, it really becomes it really becomes a popularity contest, no matter how many times we say it's not a popularity contest. And if someone who's really good at the activity isn't elected, they tend to distance themselves from the activity in general, which is just like a negative thing that happens in the activity, and it happens in a lot of different extracurriculars. And honestly, if I were the coach, or like a coach of a team, I would just get rid of a captain position altogether, and I would just have like different varsity members contribute, and like I would just get their opinions on whatever we have to do. Because at the end of the day, like throughout my 3 years of being a captain and being on the executive board for the activity, there isn't really that much you have to do as a captain in terms of like organizing events. It's more just like helping people get better at their like category. And to do that, you shouldn't have to be a captain. You should just like be a team member and like a good person. So that's one change that I definitely would want to make. I think that just like reduces the complexity of the activity overall, and just like relieves a lot of stress. But secondly, I think that overall there's a lot of structural problems in the debate space. And I think that when a team is so focused on like getting better at this skill, that skill, and winning, we often don't tackle the problems, and we often don't tackle our biases in the debate space. So I would make it a priority to talk about these issues. So, for example, this year as a senior, I really, really thought it was important in debate in particular to talk about gender disparity in debate. So I reached out. I know someone gave a gender presentation at NSDA's, I think a couple of years ago, or maybe it was last year. I reached out to her, and I got the presentation that she was presenting, and I actually presented that same presentation to my debaters. And I wanted to make sure that they knew that like unconsciously, this like happens. Like a lot of us are biased in this way, for example, and it doesn't make you necessarily a terrible person, but we all want to be aware of those biases so that we don't act unfairly towards other people. We don't end up like hurting other people's feelings or hurting other people in general, and making the space a destructive space. So I think that in general, we all need to focus more on those subtle issues that happen in the debate space. And we shouldn't always just start blaming people, but we should try to bring it in more of like a team dynamic where it's just like expected that we kind of know these things, but there's no pressure around it. We're not like singling anyone out, but we're refreshing ourselves that these problems do end up existing in any type of space we're in. And I think that if we do things like this, like if I were to do this as a captain or a coach, it would end up not even making us just better debaters or just better speakers, but also just making us better human beings in general. And I think that's what the activity really should be about.
Oh my god! Oh my god! I have to try to hold myself back from crying. I'm so happy. That was such a great answer. Okay, I love that answer. I think for coaches that are listening, for older students, I think that he gave two really good answers on the changes that we can make in the speech and debate system. And for those who know, if you've listened to my episodes, you've heard some of the people that I've had on, and we've talked about racial disparities, gender disparities, and ableism, and everything in my podcast about speech and debate with some of the guests. And I think that obviously that's important. And I'm going to continue to press that. Continue to work with your students at whatever school you're at, whether you're in Montgomery, Alabama, or San Francisco, California. Talk to the kids about how you can try your best to alleviate some of those biases, because it's really easy for people to just, especially and the fact that I know this episode probably won't come out until maybe early July, but the fact that I'm recording it in June, especially right now with all of the things we've been seeing with like Black Lives Matter movements and other stuff right now, this is like a time for nobody should be running around saying like, oh, I'm not racist, I swear, or I'm not sexist, I swear, or I'm not, ableist, I swear. Like, that's not, I think, what we want to have you respond back as the goal. If you are in this activity, in this community, you need to just listen to the disparities that we're presenting to you and try to figure out the best way to change. Like, if someone's telling me as a person, if Bera is giving me this presentation and I'm like, I don't do this as a man, this is ridiculous, that shouldn't be my answer. My answer should be, like, what things am I doing to make, gender disparity unfortunate in the speech and debate community, and the things that I'm doing well, how can I teach it to other people so that as a whole we can have the most inclusive and positive community there is, and really, really good answer with the captain thing. I've thought about that for a while, coaching a lot of speech and debate teams in my lifetime. It's a very interesting ploy. I think, even when I first joined the Brookfield East team working with you all, I thought it was a little interesting too that we had like kind of a captain system. I think it's cool in its essence, but I do think the best way to make it even better is what you probably described. I think that if you could just, like, all the things that a captain does is stuff that should be like either required or expected from general senior members. They all should be, helping out, and they all should be running rooms and stuff like that. So that's a really good answer that I like a lot as well. And not just focusing on winning, you're just focused on how you can build a better speech and debate team overall. So that's amazing. Man, this I feel like I could definitely talk a lot more. I have been super, super honored today to be sitting here with Bera Demirbilek and getting the chance to just hear a lot and to hear some great things, as I know he's grown in the speech and debate community, and as a student, and as a man going to Stanford, which is awesome. So for the listeners, I really hope you enjoyed this episode. These next few episodes are probably going to be more profiles, because I am having so much fun reaching out to old students from the past and just kind of getting their insights on the speech and debate community and stuff like that. And I miss them, so it's great to just hear their voice, honestly. But for those that are listening, if you want to join in on the conversation, make sure you feel free to leave a comment down below if you're listening to this on like Apple or Spotify or podcasts, or DM me on Instagram or TikTok at the Forensics Guy. I'm going to be continuing to post these episodes every Wednesday. Make sure you're listening. Actually, if you're listening if you're listening in June, I didn't post one during this week because of it's been a lot of stuff. I'll explain this as things been going on, but make sure you're listening every Wednesday. I'm always going to have a new episode. And I'm super, super, super honored once again, to have Bera Demirbilek on. Thank you so much, Bera, for joining the episode. It has been great hearing your insight. That is it, guys. So feel free to like this, give it 5 stars on Apple Podcast, and hit me up. Thank you so much. Thank you again.
One last thing, Dante. One last thing.
Peace.
If any of the listeners are like small school debaters, for example, small school Congress kids, be sure to put like any of my social information down below. So if anyone does have a question for me, they can contact me as well, especially during the summer.
Thank you so much. I was gonna put your social information down in the show notes. So I'm super glad that you pressed it again. Yes, the show notes, and even when I post this on the different social media sites, it will have his contact information below. So if you are a small school debater and you're trying to step your game up in Congress, he's out here helping people and making sure that they're going to be maybe half as great as him, because he's pretty great. But he'll get you up there. He'll get you up there, y'all. Thanks again, Bara, for being on, and y'all know the deal. I will see you all later. Peace out.